America Rising, you might be familiar with the name. It is a PAC for all intents and purposes. I don't think that's an inaccurate description. The CEO, Alex Wilkes, is on the phone right now. Alex, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. You're a lot closer to this crap than I am because I get to watch it on television and decide which reporter's lying and which isn't. You actually live and breathe the politics of this nation, and anything that I said there leading up to you off base as far as your interpretation of what's going on with Mr. Kavanaugh?
Not at all. What we're really seeing out there is just a very troubling, demise of due process ideas in our country right now and journalistic reporting standards. The fact that we have U.S. senators going out there and saying that Judge Kavanaugh is guilty or until proven innocent, just goes against, it's antithetical to our American way of life. And I think that they are setting an extremely dangerous precedent. They were the ones who so recklessly introduced all of this at the last possible moment so that they could hold the country hostage in this debate when this should have been investigated many, many months beforehand, and if not months beforehand, when Judge Kavanaugh worked as staff secretary to President Bush, a very sensitive position where he's seeing every piece of paper that goes across the president's desk. It should have been brought up when he was nominated to the D.C. Circuit, one of the most powerful appellate courts in the country. And so I think what we're seeing here is a desperate play from Democrats, but one that is undermining our fundamental American values.
I have a theory on why this happened as it happened and the timeline that was created, and I do believe that it is simply an effort for Dianne Feinstein to be seen as riding to the rescue of the liberal left. She was left behind by her own Democrat organization. They did not endorse her. She was not left enough. She was not liberal enough in her own district. And I think that this is her way of trying to get her liberal bona fides back, if you know what I mean, and to ride in and say, I'm going to find a way to stop this thing, to try to win come November. I believe she truly believes she is in danger, and this is an effort on her part to save her own candidacy, and it has very little to do with Mr. Kavanaugh.
I couldn't agree more. I think that she is someone who is desperate to prove her progressive credentials as she faces off a challenge from the left in California. But I think that it's sort of backfiring in this case because her actions, whether Democrats will admit it or not, they're sort of puzzling. She did not raise these points at any time during the confirmation process. She didn't raise him when she had the opportunity to meet with Judge Kavanaugh, when she had the opportunity to question him in front of the whole country in closed session, submitting questions to the judge to answer, written questions for the judge to answer after the fact. There were many opportunities for her to bring this up and arguably, I think, make a bigger splash because it would have been in the middle of it would have been in the middle of all the deliberations. Now, we are at the tail end of this process, and so she has really done, Dr. Ford and other women a disservice by rushing this out here at the last possible second because it's calling into question the motives of everyone that's involved.
Thinking of women, and I hate to do that, I don't like anything that is specific, male, female, black, white, Republican, Democrat, whatever. In a case like this, we need to all, as far as I'm concerned, be thinking like Americans. And it's unfortunate that one side has to cause a situation, whereas the other side, being mine in this case, has to find some way to protect and circle the wagons and retaliate and defend and all that. This is one of those things where just as American citizens, we ought to be able to look at something, and innocent until proven guilty should not be that hard to understand. We have a couple of women in the Senate. We have a couple in the House. And this issue about, believing and protecting women and so forth, that falls flat on its face. And this is something I put on my social media today. The moment that Keith Ellison is charged and he is removed from any leadership roles within the DNC, then I'm going to believe it's about protecting people, women in this case, more than it is about politics. But where is that logic? Why is that not spouted? Why is it not prevailing? Where is Maxine Waters, one of the biggest mouths on that side of the political fence when it comes to defending women? Should she not be genuine enough to question the doings of one of her own in her own party? And but we haven't heard about him from her. She really hasn't had much to say about Kavanaugh. Where are all these women in both houses of Congress that I would expect to be speaking up? Because as far as I can see, they're not.
I mean, it really speaks to where we are as a country right now, which is incredibly polarized. And, it's really a shame because, what we're talking about is an evolution in society, and an important debate about where that goes. So, there was a time in our legal system where the claims of sexual assault victims were not taken as seriously as they should have been, where victims were demeaned and sort of scared away from pressing on with these charges, and that was wrong. But it's equally as wrong now to flip the burden all onto the accused and say it is your job to prove that you didn't do this. That is just not how our legal system works. And I think that when it comes to the fact that this is just such a fundamental American value means that it's going to cut across all kinds of groups, political and otherwise. There are going to be accusations against Republicans. There are going to be accusations against Democrats. And if we can't come together on one standard for what that means, which should be innocent until proven guilty, I think that that's really a terrible place to be in as a country. What makes it different about Keith Ellison is that the Democrats seem to just be unwilling to even address the problem, whereas Chuck Grassley made immediate provisions to try to get Dr. Ford's testimony heard. A number of Republicans came out and said that it was important for them to hear it and important for the country to hear it. And I think Republicans bent over backwards to make as many accommodations as they could, despite the Democrats' reckless handling of this incident from the start. I think with the Democrats, though, the Keith Ellison thing is something they want to sweep under the rug, and they don't want to address it. And quite frankly, it doesn't really work for the media in terms of the narrative they want to put out there about Democrats and Republicans. So we don't hear about it that much from them. You
want to skip testifying under oath. You want to skip going to D.C. and sitting before a congressional committee, a Senate committee there to make your testimony. This is 2018. Any evidence, any proof that you have, put it on social media. 24 hours later, your case is made and the man is out of contention. That hasn't been done, therefore I don't believe it exists. That's basically what it comes down to for me. You don't need the attorneys, you don't need the hearings, you don't need the appointments, you don't need anything. All you need is www.sharemystorywithsomebody.com or whatever, and put it out there. And it would be, if this stuff existed, and so far, everything that was supposed to exist has been shut back down. I wasn't there, never heard of it, wasn't at that party, and I saw the Fox interview last night. I don't know if you watched it or not.
I did, yep.
I realize they have children, but I'm still wondering. I think this guy, honestly, and the world seems to be obsessed with his sexual history because of that interview. I would not be surprised. He didn't come out and say it, but I would not be surprised if this man was the kind of young man that saved himself for marriage. He comes across that way to me, and if so, God bless him. But after watching that last night, I'm sorry. You cannot watch him. You cannot watch the kind of woman sitting next to him who has chosen to stand behind him or beside him all these years and have a family with him. You cannot watch those people and think, yeah, those are the kind of dirtballs that do this stuff. It just doesn't fit. The puzzle doesn't fit.
Well, I think I totally agree. I think watching that interview last night was very emotional. It's clear that this has taken a toll on their family, and it's taken a toll on Dr. Ford's family as well, which really, again, I think implicates the Democrats' recklessness in all of this, that they chose the worst possible moment to, explode this in front of the country and forever impact the lives of two, possibly more families out there. So I did feel terribly sorry for them yesterday, and still do. I think, though, that what you're speaking to is a lack of corroboration. So, this is one of the frequent arguments that you hear for the statute of limitations, for example. Why do we have a statute of limitations on certain crimes? And because the reality is that after a certain number of years, memories are going to fade. Physical evidence is going to deteriorate. It's going to be more and more difficult for the government to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that something criminal indeed happened. And so, that's why we have an inherent skepticism against prosecuting crimes that are that far removed. And this really illustrates, why that is. These women are bringing forth their testimony, and, the fact that we can't corroborate their claims with any sort of contemporaneous, admissions or writings or anything we might look for to back up what they're saying, I think really exposes a weakness here. And as you mentioned, the stories sort of keep getting thinner and thinner that the media is putting out. And it's really, I think, dragging the country to a terrible place, a place where facts are just unknowable at this point in time. And, we are in a just a terrible position as a country to have to watch this all unfold based on the reckless actions of Democrats.
I know I don't have a bunch of time with you, so I want to say, first of all, I agree. I said yesterday what essentially you just said a minute ago, and that is, if you think this ends with a Republican nominee, you're wrong. It's Republicans, it's Democrats. It's not. Everybody's putting out the memes now. Your son isn't safe. Your husband is. Neither is your wife. Neither is your daughter. Neither is your granddaughter. Anybody can say anything about anyone, anytime, and unless cameras were rolling or there was a room full of people, we're supposed to believe it. And if you think that's good for America, you're foolish. That is just illogical.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely illogical. First time we've had a chance to talk. Alex Wilkes, Executive Director of the America Rising. Real quickly, tell me about America Rising, how people can look at you, follow you, do all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So America Rising is the GOP's premier opposition research group. We watch Democrats all day, so you don't have to. You can go to AmericaRisingPAC.org to find out more about us. And
you're kind of a youthful organization, right? You're not a bunch of old fuddy-duddies like me.
No, not at all. Our organization is abuzz with young researchers who are hungry and getting after it every day.
Wonderful. Perpetuate common sense, make people think, Alex. That's what it's all about. That's how we get to the future.
We will.
You have a wonderful afternoon or evening wherever you are, and thanks very much for being a part.